and welcome to Football 301. I'm your host, Nate Tice. Very fun show for you guys today. We're going to talk about some fatal flaws with some playoff teams, current playoff teams. If the season ended today, we got In the Hunt graphics coming up on TV, so might as well talk about these playoff teams like it's going to happen today. To help me do that, he's back. A 1 week hiatus, a 1 week break, a 1 week rejuvenation as he does 14 shows, and I gave him one off. My guy, Mr. Matt Harmon. How you doing today, Matt? Great to see you.
No, good to see you too, Nate. Appreciated it. It was great to hear you and Robert back together. That was awesome. And if it took me getting away for 1 week to do that, I'm happy to step aside. It's a great time of the year, though. Yeah, I'm really excited to talk about all these teams.
I am too. Yeah, we're in the second half of the season. We got some now we're starting to feel like actually some like preseason takes. It's like nice to be able to just like, get rid of them. Like, like a spaceship going into space, and you're like, okay, let's get rid of the rocket now. Okay, that one didn't work. That one, we got to lose some weight now. So you kind of streamline some of these takes, even though I looked at the playoff teams, and one of them was still the Jaguars, which still shocks me based on how I feel about them. Not one of the teams that we're going to talk about today. So we'll start with the Monday Night Football game before we get into those fatal flaws. Eagles win in non-scoring bonanza, scoring non-bonanza. Eagles win 10-7 at Lambeau Field. Partied like it was 1958 at Lambeau Field. I think Curly Lambeau was taking snaps for both of these teams based on how these offenses performed last night. But yes, Eagles taking the top spot in the NFC as we stand here today at 7-2. Packers still 5-3-1, still in the playoffs as a wild card team if the season ended today. Matt, what did you think about that Monday Night Football game that I had to find other means to watch because of this YouTube TV Disney battle that is just starting to really annoy me and a lot of other people right now? But what did you think about this game, Matt?
Yeah, don't even get me started on my soapbox about that one, but I did watch the game as well, and listen, obviously not a lot of offensive fireworks from this one. We'll talk about one of the offenses, I think, a little bit in terms of the broader concerns about one of these two units. The Eagles, I think we know they're going to have these games, whatever, but I also thought, like, hey, guess what, guys? Defensive players get paid too. And I thought there were a lot of really good standout performances from especially the Eagles defensive line and just the front seven in general. I thought that was like a dominant performance. Now it's definitely concerning. I think there's been a handful of times I've seen the Packers get dominated up front and allow said dominant performance to a defensive line, which I think is a little bit of a disturbing trend that I'm noticing with that team. But put that aside for a second. I thought the Jalen Phillips addition immediately paid dividends for this team. That was really cool to see. 8 pressures in his debut at corner, Pro Football Focus, 5 defensive stops. Again, just a guy that had a familiarity with Vic Fangio, so immediately is able to step in here. You felt his presence. That was good to see. I thought there were open throws to be made that weren't always able to be attempted because of the pressure up front. So definitely a good showing by that Eagles defense coming out of the bye. And I also thought the Packers defensive line had a good game as well. So just to me, I think before you kind of get into the immediate complaining about the lack of scoring or what's wrong with this offense or what's wrong with that offense, I think we can acknowledge that this was a great showing by what should be two of the best defenses in football.
Yeah, it actually made me feel a little bit better about the Packers defense and where they're at, and a little bit worse about the Packers offense and where they're at. And the Eagles, I know Eagles fans are always like, oh, you have nothing new to say. It's like, because I don't have anything new to say, because I just feel like it's the same kind of conversation with their offense every week. It's like, we know what the story is, that they can win this way. That's why I just don't feel like, even when we're talking about fatal flaws, they're not a team to me to talk about, because I think on defense, they have found answers through the trades that they made and also just performances. I mean, Quinyon Mitchell is an all-pro corner. He leads all outside corners right now in coverage success rate allowed. He's absolutely been phenomenal. He's only allowed 36.4% success rate when he's been targeted this season, easily first in the NFL. 43.6% of his targets are labeled as tight window throws, third in the NFL behind only Sauce Gardner and PS2. But they have some dudes. Moro Ojomo is a good player. He had that big play on the 4th and 1 where he was actually calling out the plays on defense or on offense because the Packers went no huddle there. Jalen Carter, still Jalen Carter. The linebackers are, again, healthy, and you got some good players there. They added Phillips I'm curious how the Michael Carter stuff goes. And they defensively, even statistically, like it's been kind of an average to below average defense this whole year. I think you can still run on them, but now you can kind of feel like, oh, they're starting to figure this out. Vic Fangio, great vet coach, making his adjustments. The players are getting better. The players are feeling better in this defense as well. And then you look, even like DVOA, just one stat, but they're 15th in weighted DVOA. That feels about right. That feels about right to me. Like they're 11th against the pass, 21st against the run. That feels right. I think that passing number crops up into the top 10. Yeah, it's going to keep going up. They end up probably top 6, top 5. That's what it feels like to me. And I think the run defense will be kind of middle of the pack. That's the way you kind of jab this defense. Kind of typical against a Vic Fangio defense. Last year was kind of I say typical, but he's also put together some of the best defenses we've seen in the last decade. So it's kind of one of these things where it's like, yeah, it's a weakness, but it's still usually pretty dang good. And then offensively, it's just like, yeah, they can get Saquon going. Lane Johnson's banged up a little bit. The interior of the offensive line's been banged up, and that's moving pieces. I get that, but it's still like a solid run game. Still got Saquon that can take it to the house. They're figuring out the tight end usage because they're going with the 6 offensive lineman stuff, which I think it was a nice little tweak for them. It's going to be frustrating. Hurts is going to have moments of frustration, but then at any time, this offense can hit a big play at any single point in the game, even if you keep them to their lowest success rate based on the show. Kapadia tweeted this out. The Eagles had their worst regular season success rate since Sirianni and Hurts were the head coach and the quarterback. And the only game that was worse was the playoff loss against the Bucs in 2023. That was their worst one. 6th percentile offense performance. Felt like it. Yeah. It felt like it, but then they win the game, and there's Devontae Smith dunking on a guy. And I actually had a question for you on Devontae Smith because I know we're both fans of him. Where do you just stack him up overall? I know we always are like, oh, he's kind of a 1 high end 2, the best 2 you can have, or maybe a low end 1. Like, where do you just have him now? Because I'm like, I love Devontae Smith, one of my favorite players in the league, but I've always been kind of realistic, maybe where I try to be realistic where I stack him up. But like, man, I'm like, he's just a 1 to me now because he can just do this at any single time. So I'm curious actually where you have him at.
Yeah, so heading into the season, I had him in kind of the mid-teens ranking of wide receivers, which I think that type of and just in overall real life wide receiver rankings, because this is a doc I usually make and tweak around in the offseason based on my charting and stuff like that. And so I kind of had him mid-teens ish there, which to me is that he's a 2. He's a 2 on his team, but he's the best 2 in the league. If I'm thinking of those guys, the T. Higgins, the Jalen Waddles, Chris Godwin and Mike Evans have kind of gone back and forth on who's the 1, who's the 2, but I think Godwin generally is the kind of more product of the environment than Evans is there. But it's like that crop of players, the guys that are the supercharged 1B type receivers, he to me was the best of that crop. That being said, and I've said this, and it's like the only thing I can come up with to talk about the Eagles offense to say anything interesting, because I'm with you, it just generally is what it is that this season he is clearly and obviously with a huge gap been the best receiver on this team. Like I think pretty firmly here, and this is actually a thing that dates back. right. This is the thing that dates back to last season from a production standpoint. Was actually before I read off the stats that I read off on my show last night. One, I've said this a lot with AJ Brown. What's been so frustrating about his play this season is that last season he was number 1 in success rate versus man coverage among all players I charted for reception perception. You know who was number 2 though was Devontae Smith. So he, I think, already made a leap last year individually, where I think he went from good number 2 to a guy that, because I think they weaponized. Shout out to Kellen Moore, I think did a really good job of weaponizing him pre-snap, changing around his alignment. He is able to he made that career breakthrough season last year, his best season from an efficiency standpoint last year. But then about midway through last November, so this is from week 12 through the Super Bowl to this past game last night, despite being targeted at a lower rate than AJ Brown. AJ Brown about 23 he has 125 targets in the span. Devontae Smith 112 targets. Brown has more receptions, more yards, 1 fewer touchdown. He's sitting on 2.26 yards per route. AJ Brown 1.93 yards per route. So he's just been the better Eagles receiver for a minute now, dating back to midway through November of last year. And I feel like we have, as a football public, not accepted this. I said this on my fantasy show. One of the first things I do every single week when I do rankings, I go to the wide receiver tab and I flip where the consensus rankings have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, because one's always lower than the other, despite the fact now we've got a large sample of one being better than the other. And I think my last point on this, what I've loved so much about Smith's season, is that he is able to live in both worlds that the Eagles want to get to. They want to do that spread and shred that they typically have done, the kind of more static routes with Jalen Hurts. He can run those, just on a line routes, goes, comebacks, curls, all that stuff as an outside receiver. You can move him into the slot, whatever. But when they want to get into some of these, as you mentioned, the jumbo formations, the heavier sets, and you want to get under center and run play action, which they tried to do last night, they just didn't have the same success they did the 2 games before the bye. Then he can run those big dig routes against man coverage as an X receiver. So he's able to live in both the worlds the Eagles want to get into right now, which I think is also really impressive.
No, that's awesome to hear you say, because I'm starting to kind of consider him a top 10 guy. Just no caveats, nothing. Just that's it. Top 10 receiver to me, because just everything you're saying. And yes, even with A.J. Brown having this weird season and just doesn't seem like he wants to be there some of the times. And a lot of his kind of targets this year sometimes feel performative in a sense, where it's like, all right, just make him happy, throw this one, as opposed to Devontae's coming in the flow of the offense, and which is a kind of a term I like to use. It's just that I'm glad you brought up I wrote down right away. If anyone's watching a YouTube show, you probably saw my head duck down right when you were saying anything the Eagles want to do, he's kind of fitting with that. And that's what I really like with Devontae Smith. He's scheme proof. Those are the guys that are they can fit into any offense because their skill set allows them to fit in any type of offense. And I don't want people to take this in the wrong way, but it's, when I say people, I mean Eagles fans, is that I know that the Eagles, and we just joked about it, is what it is. Like, they do a couple tweaks, but, the passing game kind of is what it is. It is the Jalen Hurts offense, for better or for worse. Devontae Smith, I think no player on the Eagles gets kind of hindered by that more than Devontae Smith. And I'm not just saying like, oh, like poor Devontae and all that. What I'm saying is that if he were a one, or if he were an offense that maybe just even used his skill set, even though I just say he's scheme proof, he can fit into anything, but truly use the full route running tree that he's good. He's a receiver's receiver. He's like such a good route runner, always gets his depth, good with his ball skills, in all 3 levels. Like, he's just so good at all the detail stuff. It's always why I liked him. And this is me, a guy that always prefers big receivers. He was the guy that I always called the outlier. He's just that type of guy. Like, he's just a ball player, and he's so good at it that if he were in an offense that was a little bit more flowy with the passing game, people would kind of recognize like, oh man, that's the former Heisman Trophy winner that we knew that got drafted in the lottery. Like, that's how just good he was. And so it's kind of nice that we see these productions and these big pop moments, because sometimes it's felt like he's so secondary in this offense. First it was A.J. Brown leading the charge, and then it was Saquon Barkley comes in, leads them to the Super Bowl run, the offensive line, Jalen Hurts. And it feels like Devontae kind of gets, shoved aside. So I'm seeing him kind of, getting some shine, which I think is so deserved. So I'm glad that you have some stats that point to that, because eye test wise, feel when I watch this Eagles offense, watching the flow of the offense, like he is the dude. And I just really, really like his game. And I'm just kind of glad to see him kind of play like this right now. Also, just leaving after that, Eagles, very good. Contenders looking like defense is ramped up. I love the additions they made, yada, yada, yada. Packers, on the other hand, Tucker Kraft being out stinks. Receiver injuries cropping up left and right. O-line injuries now cropping up left and right. Just a very frustrating team that I really like the highs of this team. And it's just, there's stretches and drives and play calls that I'm just like, oh my God. It's so well designed, and so LaFleur's flow of the game, or feel for the flow of the game, it just feels a little off right now. Like, where he can get a little tight sometimes when he doesn't need to, or gets a little too aggressive at other times when he doesn't need to. And I know that's kind of a results-based analysis, but I do think that's just over time, where just some of these game flows and game scripts, they feel off. Jordan Love starts pressing a little bit. I still trust this team. I still think this is a playoff team all the way because of what they can do, but they got to figure some stuff out soon. So big win for the Eagles, even if that was a glorified rock fight. Like, I mean, oh my God, that was some ugly moments in that game. It was so ugly, man. I was so geeked up for this game because I was like, 4 good units. Let's see. And I'm a guy that's like, oh yeah, defenders get paid too. Like, watch a Jomo just call out that inside zone play. Like, oh, that's awesome. But even in this game, I'm like, oh,
there was some bad offense. That's the thing. It wasn't just good defense. There was some bad offense. I actually just wrote literally before the show. I just published a piece on the Packers offense and where it is right now. So I won't unload like all of my thoughts on that. And by the way, they're one of the teams I want to talk about.
Read that definitely
for tomorrow's episode on the film room for the fantasy film room. So we can kind of save that discussion for there because we have a lot to get to on this show. But it just, you felt the immediate loss of Tucker Kraft. And I'm a little concerned with where the offense is right now. I don't want to fully push the freak out, complete fire drill panic, but I think there are some things
the case on the button has been lifted up. Like the panic button, the case got lifted up, just get ready to press.
Right. I mean, this is an offense that has been one of the most, since LaFleur took over, one of the most efficient units in the NFL. From 2019 to 2024, second in EPA per play, sixth, I believe, fourth in points per drive. And they're just they're not anywhere close to that standard right now. It's mostly these last two games where they've scored 20 points combined, which is not ideal. But regardless, I think there are some deep root causes that do take some time to untangle there.
So now they got the Giants next. They go Giants, Vikings, Lions, Bears. Yeah, I'm going Giants. Well, that actually leads us very nicely to our next news item that we're going to talk about here. The Giants, who the Packers are facing this week, just fired their head coach, Brian Daboll. Offense coordinator Mike Kafka is taking over as interim head coach. This was a long time coming. They were facing, even before the year, he was on the hot seat, and the Giants had the hardest schedule based on every metric you looked at going into the season. So it was like, man, if they even pull off 5 wins, that would be a miracle. But even having said that, Giants have had a worse record than the Jets over the past 5 years. Brian Daboll had a 34.2% win percentage, which was 186 out of 204 coaches that coached at least 50 games. Sheil Kapadia had that as well from the Ringer. He made the playoffs in the first year, and it just kind of felt like they kept betting on stuff that were not things you want to bet on or just really, real. And then even actually when I say that with Daniel Jones leaves and has like his best season ever too, which is also indicative of what exactly quarterback coaching is going on from the quarterback guru. Matt Harmon, Brian Daboll, parting thoughts and maybe where the Giants are at right now.
I mean, geez, yeah. I joked on the Sunday recap show I do for the fantasy show. I was like, I would have fired Brian Daboll after this game just because of how it was putting his quarterback in harm's way consistently as a battering ram. I would have fired him right after the game. But that was kind of a half joke, and then he gets fired anyways. And obviously, he didn't just get fired. I think maybe that would. If it's the final straw that broke the camel's back, maybe, but this is something that they should have done before the year. Like, what was the point of all of this? What did Brian do? And you knew it because of how thirsty and desperate everything Daboll did with Jackson Dart and Cam Scatterbo. It was so plainly obvious that it was almost as fun as it has been, I think, to watch Dart play. There was always this grossness to it because you could just tell Daboll is so clearly trying to attach themselves at the hip, but then using that as a desperation play to survive and keep his job. That I think at points putting a quarterback who already is way too reckless in further harm's way. So again, it had to be done, which you mentioned Daniel Jones. That was basically a lot of what they did with him in 2022 was use him as a battering ram. And then as soon as Brian Daboll got out of Buffalo, they kind of come to the realization, we can't keep using Josh Allen this way or he's going to be the next Cam Newton. So it's like there's a little bit of a trend in all of this here. So to me, it just seemed crazy to bring him back to begin with. They're going to keep Joe Shane. I don't know about that decision. That's kind of what makes me think, I wonder if Mike Kafka actually has a real shot to get this job. I know that there's a lot of sentiment around the league. Yeah, right? I mean, I know there's a lot of sentiment around the league, and you've seen people say this, this is a really appealing, it's a really attractive job. I generally think so because I think there will be people who want to – I think there will be a handful of people that look at Jackson Dart and say, probably not for me. And I'm just not really ready to make any bold proclamations about where a quarterback is after a small handful of good or bad. We've done this way too often with young quarterbacks where then the next step doesn't come. Okay. Like we'll see what happens. And I'm generally positive and been impressed, more impressed than I expect to be, more impressed than I expected to be with Jackson Dart as a rookie. Mm-hmm. That being said, I do think there's gonna be a handful of coaches that just don't see it in terms of him fitting into their offenses or whatever. The other part of it is there's a general vibe of patience. That's good. But you've got an inherited quarterback. You've got an inherited general manager. There will be better opportunities where you can just blank slate. So that's a part of it. And ultimately, Mike Kafka is a guy who came from a completely different school of thought than Brian Daboll. He came from the Chiefs world where Daboll came from Buffalo. They did not kind of come in attached at the hip. And Mike Kafka called the plays in 2022 when this team was probably the best it was on offense. Mm-hmm. So I think there's a real shot for him as the interim coach to actually keep this job if they continue to show some signs of promise and they don't want to shake things up for Dart at the end of the year.
I agree with you because Kafka's gotten a lot of love and it's been consistent for a while now. A lot of people that have been around him have talked to him. I have never spoken to him. But people that have always spoke very highly of him as a smart football mind. So that's an interesting, variable of all of this, maybe. And also you got Mara, the owners, they're sentimental. I think anyone that watched that Hard Knocks with the Giants last year, it's an old school franchise and they like their names and they like to make sure their quarterback is, I don't want to use the word coddled, but the word, I just used it, but they want to make sure that the quarterback, I know, I can't believe I just did that. My brain, I said what my brain was thinking, but it happens a lot. But they want to make sure that, okay, the quarterback's the guy, he's our guy, he's protected and everything, and we want to make sure that he's good to go. All right, who likes him? So every interview, whoever comes in, how much do you like our guy? How much do you like Jackson Dart? And if Kafka just goes, yeah, I like him, well, that's great because I think Joe Shane got to keep his job because I do think there's some Ole Miss connections that he's had. And why I say that, when I say Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin, who's got a lot of college interest right now, maybe he can sucker his way into another NFL job, which would be interesting. But I think it's just I know Lane Kiffin in the NFL. Yes, please. I don't think he would. I think just he likes the little college freewheeling that he gets to do. But no, that's another name that kind of just came to my mind too, because that's who they're going to protect, whoever they think Dart's the guy. I mean, obviously with the vibes of the franchise and everything. And I'm with you. I am not ready to make any grand statement because I considered him a project that had interesting tools, and I've not seen enough to declare anything, even after the Bears game against a bad Bears defense, which we'll talk about on the show, was that was the most encouraged I was on Sunday, and he still got hurt and knocked out with a concussion because it's just that he takes a lot of hits and he's a very competitive guy and a very tough quarterback. But playing that, I appreciate that. I appreciate it so much. But the thing is, in the NFL, you have to learn to protect yourself as well. And that's the balance between the player and the coach has to step in sometimes and not run your rookie quarterback who's already had 4 concussion protocols already in the first 2 months of his NFL career. He has 25 design runs, which led the NFL, and he didn't start the first month of the season. So maybe don't call as many design runs. He's already scrambling. So that's the thing. There's design runs and there's scrambles. And I get sometimes Jane Daniels got hurt onto what I think, I might be wrong here, but I think it was a bootleg and he just tucked it and ran, which is a scramble. And so that's why I'm not dogging the Commanders as much as maybe this, because these are design runs that he's getting hurt on. Design runs in short yardage, which are guaranteed going to take a hit, guaranteed. The quarterback is going to get hit if he runs in short yardage. It is just physics. So there is just a lot of that. And that's just how Daboll's been. I've always thought of him as a frustrating guy, frustrating personality, because even with the Kafka stuff, it was one week he'd be like, I'm calling plays. Next week it'd be like, Kafka's calling plays. Yeah. And then it was always making sure to let everybody know after they have a good game that he was calling plays. It was always about him. Yep. And NFL head coaches have ego. I'm including my dad here, but the thing is,
you just can't make it so obvious. He was so obvious. It was so obvious. It was so blatant. And I actually think for Kafka, that's the thing is what is his? I agree with you. I don't know, and I've never spoken to him. But what is his temperament like? Because that I think Daboll, unfortunately, when things are going well, well, that's good because when things are going well, it was awesome, vibes are high. When things were bad, it was just a lot of pointing around, a lot of not so great.
Yep,
way too emotional.
Yeah, way too emotional. And I know he's got a lot of friends in the industry and stuff. He'll bounce back on his feet. Sean McDermott already said no. Sean McDermott said, no, we're not bringing it back. It's just not to even consider it, which I thought it was interesting. But also I think it's interesting. Joe Shane kept his job, the GM. And even though they came in together, and they both came in together from Buffalo, there's clips of draft day when they took Dart where Shane is very clearly making sure that he's on camera and on the mic going,
your guy.
You guys are convicted of him. You guys believe in him.
Oh my God. So bad.
I was like, all right, Joe, I got you there. Hey, he's like, are the cameras on? Okay. Hey, you guys see this? Yeah. Who cares about the third rounder? But I also think the team hasn't gotten much better under his regime and everything. I think they've regressed in some areas. I think they have interesting players, but it's not a very complete team. Like, they still have so many holes. So yeah, it kind of felt inevitable. It's not like I told you so kind of thing or with any of this, but it was just, I think Daboll was so performative with some of the stuff, and it kind of wears thin. And I know he has a lot of friends around there, but I thought it wore thin years ago. So pass heavy everywhere he stopped, no reflection on all that. And I include, this is my last parting thing, the Daniel Jones thing. I used to nickname Daniel Jones Grand from Lord of the Rings.
From Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. Boom.
The battering ram. Yep.
Yeah. The battering ram. And then I was like, oh, that's just how you use early career Josh Allen, which Josh Allen kind of brings that on himself a little bit too. And then he gets Dart and he just keeps doing it again. And it's like, the Grand nickname just follows Brian Daboll. It wasn't the player, it was the coach. It's just use these guys as battering rams when all else fails. So very curious to see who fills this spot. It's not like the NFC East is a cakewalk as well. And I think it's just, you have interesting pieces on this team on offense and defense, but Shane's still there, and it's going to be Shane's probably going to have a call on who the coach is. And I'm very interested to see who it is. It's probably someone that likes Jackson Dart. That's my answer. Yep. But we're going to take our first break. Before we do that, make sure you check us out on the Yahoo Sports Network. It's available to stream on leading fast services and on yahoosports.tv. We're going to take that quick break, and then we're going to get into fatal flaws for playoff teams. It's going to be a lot of fun. See you guys in a sec. All right, we are back. It's time for some fatal flaws for playoff teams. All right, let's first go over the 14 teams that are part of the current playoff bracket as we enter Week 11. In the AFC, you got the Colts in the 1 seed, as everyone predicted. The Colts also hit their over win total already, which is hilarious. Week 11,
first team,
they already
right?
hit their over. Yeah, I think the first team, and then and then the Patriots, depending on when you got it. Those are the two teams. So Broncos are the 2 seed. Patriots, the 3 seed. This is just exactly what everyone expected. Steelers are the 4 seed. Chargers, the 5 seed. The Bills, the 6 seed. The Jags, the 7 seed. The Chiefs are the first ones out, but not included here. The NFC, Eagles, the 1 seed. Seahawks, the 2 seed. The Lions, the 3 seed. The Bucs, the 4 seed. The Rams, the 5 seed. Bears, 6 seed. Packers, 7 seed. The 49ers are the first ones out. And then we got the Panthers right behind them. That's for you. Some weird preseason predictions coming to fruition here, I guess.
Doesn't feel great after last week, but whatever.
feeling pretty good. I'm just going to say this. Feeling a lot better about some of these NFC teams than I am with the AFC teams, which I'm sure we'll talk about in this. And we got an awesome game this weekend between the number 1, number 2 DVOA teams and the Rams and the Seahawks. But again, we're going to talk about some fatal flaws. That was the menu of teams that Matt and I were sifting through. We each picked 4, and let's go from there. Matt, what was the first team that you wanted to talk about and their fatal flaw?
Let's talk about Tampa Bay Buccaneers here, who I do think will win their division. I don't think the Panthers are going to be challenging for them for the NFC South.
What about the Falcons?
Nice to see him. Oh my God. Yeah, I've started to see sentiments from some Falcons fans just being like, I don't even care about I'm glad we've got Pierce and Xavier Watts. I'm glad we've got them. They don't even care about that first round pick anymore. So that's where their season is at. They're not in the graphic here, but at least Carolina's in the graphic. We'll settle with that. But for Tampa Bay, I think they'll win their division. I think they'll make the playoffs. I think they'll host a playoff game. Their fatal flaw, though, I just think the injuries and really the lack of reinforcements on offense. I'm starting from a week-by-week basis to get more and more concerned about this, because at some point in the season, you could sit there and say, all right, well, Someday Chris Godwin will be back. Someday Mike Evans will be back. Someday Bucky Irving will be back. I mean, Bucky Irving is just every single week they start the week saying he's the only update is every Monday Todd Bowles goes out there and be like, yeah, he's not going to play. Even though they never put him on IR, and it was kind of weird that it happened with the lower body injury, but then it was the shoulder injury that actually was the big problem. So yeah, that's just at this point, I don't know when we're going to see him. And Rachaad White, I think, filled in capably for a couple games, which he's the exact type of back that can do that. He's a good complementary back, and I think he can be successful in short bursts, but you're starting to see the longer and longer that he's your lead back, there's just a real lack of explosiveness in the run game. And I think that last year, Bucky Irving gave them a real counterpunch as that explosive gap scheme runner. And to be fair, they weren't that great of a run game to start the year when he was there. But that's something that small sample sizes, whatever, I think over the course of the year, he probably would have been able to give them that counterpunch. And I just think they're really missing him right now. So the burden has fallen more and more on Baker's shoulders. And Baker's a good quarterback. I think he's kind of a fringe top 10 guy, but we know he can be streaky and up and down and kind of go with the flow of the circumstances. And not only do you have a run game that I think is consistently not putting you in good positive down and distance situations, Emeka Egbuka is awesome. I know you watched this game because I saw you tweeting about it. I loved going back and reviewing the Egbuka Christian Gonzalez matchup from this past weekend. I thought that was just two good players going back and forth on each other and really a good battle between those two guys. He's awesome. That's great. And then you've got Tez Johnson kind of giving you some nice contributions, but it gets really thin really fast in that passing game. And Chris Godwin's another guy that's just, again, same with Bucky Irving. You can just put them in the bucket together Monday. These guys not going to play. No, they're not practicing. Don't Friday will officially rule them out. Don't worry about that. So we don't even know when he's going to be back. His season's probably a wash. Jalen McMillan, dude, we've just forgotten about him. He's still on IR with a neck injury that's pretty serious by all accounts. So it's just, I worry that this team, which should be loaded on offense, feels really thin. And I think the defense has been playing better than it did last year, but I'm not sure it's at a level where that can win them a playoff game if their offense isn't firing on all cylinders. And I'm just starting to get to a point in the season where I don't know if we're going to see that type of unit.
Yeah, the defense is good, but it's gettable. That's the best way I can put it. It is tough to run against. I know the explosive runs, and I'll talk about the Patriots in this segment, spoilers, or in this pod. But there's just those explosive runs, which is like, it is what it is. Like, one of them was really well blocked, and the others were just a couple mistakes happened. It is what it is. But they beat the crap out of the Patriots the rest of the game as far as run game wise. And then you can get them in the passing game though. Like you can, like, there's just ways you can, but it is still like good defense overall. I think, but everything you said, I totally agree that the injuries, especially in offense, because it's just such important players that create so much in this offense. It's like, you feel it's, at first it was the offensive line, losing so many guys, and then it's kind of slowly trickled back. Even Tristan Wirfs is still playing good, but not maybe to his 100% best tackle in football level quality, but still good. Then you get Luke Gedeke back. He comes back on last week, and then Ben Bredesen gets hurt at left guard.
Exactly.
So it's just like, as soon as we get one guy back, another guy gets hurt. And Graham Barton's still good and everything, but then with the receiver stuff is now you're without Godwin in there, who is just a easy button for a quarterback to hit. Emeka Egbuka has turned into an easy button, but I like having several easy buttons in this offense as opposed to just one. So it's not just like, oh, our starter is out. It's like, no, these are Pro Bowl quality players that are out and missing time. And like you said, Egbuka is awesome. He's still a rookie. And so, like, okay, but he wasn't supposed to be lifting up the entire offense. He was supposed to be, okay, he'll be the number 3, help out Godwin until he gets 100%, and then we're really cooking. And now he's just been, okay, be the number 1. That's just not the plan. They've done the best they could. Like, that's why it's so hard to talk about them and talk about some of these teams that have so many injuries. It's just like, they're trying. It's just that this is what they are right now. So I'm right there with you. I looked up even, and maybe having Gedeke back helped this a little bit, but yards before contact in each game. So week 1 was 2.83. Very good. That's a good mark against the Falcons' run defense, which we're realizing is pretty light in the pants. Then after that, yards before contact per run, 0.77, 0.82, 1.04, 0.46, 1, 1.67, 0.45. And then now it hit 2.05 last week against the Patriots. But that is just indicative of their, because Baker's not running the ball outside scrambling. He's not designed running. So it's just running back runs, and they're just getting stifled. There's not a lot of push. Again, that's O-line injuries and stuff. And I like their scheme. Like, there's nothing I can go like, man, do this more or do that more, do that more. It's just, it is what it is. This is what we're at right now. And Baker has had some real good moments. You mentioned the streakiness. When he's rolling and clicking and firing and seeing it and able to scramble, it's been good. They've had some real good moments, the comeback wins and everything. But you can even see against like the Patriots and other teams that have played them lately, they're realizing that Baker's scrambling a little bit more. So they're kind of playing him a little differently. That's when film gets out. And so that's what just stinks. And it's like, okay, well, this is when usually if you had your full-fledged team, that wouldn't be such a big deal. Just chuck it up to Mike Evans, something of that sort. Design another play to Godwin. Can't do that right now because this is a bottom 10 run game. The lack of Bucky Irving. I hope the offensive line, getting Gedeke back will boost this a little bit, but now they might be out both of their guards, their week 1 guards that they should have had. So just a tough situation, but I agree with you. It's like, this is a playoff team. They're going to win the division. I think I'm pretty easily could say that, but it's just, can they win that first playoff game? Because they would be hosting right now. They'd be hosting the Rams, who might be the best team in the NFL right now. So it's the difference between playoff team and then making a run in the playoffs. And right now the Bucs just don't that team right now to make that run.
I think the one thing too, just about Ibuka, to mention real quick too, is that, I mean, I think he's a great player and he's to me been the best rookie this year. Because of the injuries, he has to play, I would say, about 65% of his snaps at X receiver, which he's good enough to do, but it's not how you fully maximize him, right? And I mean, they got him when they got the Patriots when they moved him into the slot. And he got Christian Gonzalez a couple times. Christian Gonzalez had some good reps on him, but that's been a part of the offense that they shouldn't have to do that. They shouldn't have to leave him in that spot as much as they have. But the other options are Sterling Shepard and Tez Johnson, who weighs 142 pounds. You're certainly not putting those dudes at X receiver. So it's just like, that's the thing. So much of what could have been for this Bucs team, I think, has not been. And that could have been, to me, a team that won a playoff game or maybe 2. And right now, I just don't think they look like that.
That's it. Even before the season, like, if they were healthy, to me, I was like, man, I don't know. This could be a top 10 offense, top 10 defense. And usually that means contender to me. There were, and they can get generated pass rush. They can protect, they can run the ball. But then it's just, with those injuries, the run game hasn't been consistent enough. And then now you're relying on Emeka Egbuka and Baker Mayfield and Cade Otton, Mr. Cade Otton. It's just the unsinkable Cade Otton having a nice little game, of course. I'll move on to my first one. Not really an extensive thought here, but it's an extensive definition or explanation here. But I'm going to go with the Broncos, who have at least a top 3 defense at the very least. I would say a good offensive line, a top 10 offensive line pretty easily, top 6, I would even say. Decent pass catchers, I would say. I would say an okay running back room. My fatal flaw for the Broncos is Bo Nix. And there's no being around the bush. There's no, lack of explosives in the passing game or lack of consistency. It's Bo Nix. A couple of weeks ago, we talked about Sean Payton and we're just kind of like, what's going on with this offense and kind of what's missing and everything. And I even said on it that Sean Payton's playbook, he can call literally any play. Like, it isn't a very extensive playbook. He has his favorites that he gets to, but this playbook right now, because of the quarterback, is very thin. It's a very narrow offense. It's a very narrow passing game. Right now, Bo Nix, there's 26 quarterbacks that have 200 or more pass attempts. He's 22nd out of 26 in passes that travel or 10 or more air yards, 22nd in net yards per attempt, and that's despite having the lowest sack rate in the NFL, which is a quality of his. But I'll also talk about the other side, the other side of the coin with that. 21st in explosive pass rate, 25th in success rate on dropbacks, 26th in success rate on just pass attempts, so taking out scrambles, and 17th in EPA per dropback, because there are some designer plays that he will hit. He is a great athlete. He's got a great arm, I would even say. But because of his play style, and this is how it was in college, and this is why even his completion percentage in college, when people are like, oh, he's the most accurate quarterback ever, it's like, no, he's not. You can even see that right now with his completion rate. It's just that his footwork is bad, outright bad. It's a lot of times he doesn't take a lot of sacks, because that's if he gets spooked at all, if he sees any color flashing as far as pass rushers or anything, just watch how many times his shoulders are parallel to the line of scrimmage. And it is very hard to throw consistently that way because that means your footwork is out of whack. And when your footwork is out of whack, some guys can make it work, but he obviously cannot, because this was in college with a lot of plays in college, a lot of dropbacks and a lot of pass attempts because he played so long. And then now in the NFL in year 2, and what I think is a pretty good ecosystem with, I think, still one of the best play callers in the NFL. Even if Broncos fans are like, "Whoa, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that?" Sean Payton, it's like, he can. He just can't. He's capable of doing that. He can't because he doesn't trust his quarterback. You watch their and this is before the season. I even talked about this. You watch their drop back game or lack thereof. And that's where over time, this is why it's feeling this way for the Broncos offense. It's very predictable. It's very much what they have to call because they want to keep Bo Nix on the rails. It leads to a lot of tendencies. It leads to a lot of stuff that defenses can tee off on. On second down, they're going to do a man zone read where they run a swing route to one side and they isolate Cortland Sutton. On third down, they're going to do the big sprint out stuff, dash pass, dart pass, one of those two things. I'm blanking on it right now, but just an extended sprint out, and which turns into a 3-man route. There's not a lot of stuff that's just like a lot of high lows that they can work. And even on the high lows, Nix just doesn't feel like he's in rhythm on those because he gets spooked if the first read isn't there. And there's just a lot. Yes, he has some drops, but also some of the drops too are because they're, it's a missile at a guy's thigh board, and when you don't take these sacks, and I get it, people will point at that, well, he doesn't take sacks and he's not making mistakes. And I get that, but then it's a denominator issue. You're not giving plays the room to breathe. You're not letting all 3 players are not becoming valid options, or 5 players are becoming valid options on a drop back scheme because they're not even finishing their route before Bo Nix is going like, oh, shoulder square. Okay, we got to run. We got to do all this. There's so many screens in this offense because, again, they're trying to keep them on the rails and they're trying to put gigantic bumpers in this offense. And it must be really frustrating that even with the bumpers, there's Bo Nix throwing the bowling ball 2 lanes over. Like that's a very frustrating aspect. And they can't trust him to run more drop back stuff because they're just not trusting what he's going to do, his decision wise. So, just a long-winded way to say, like, this is a playoff team. The defense is awesome. They can do enough on offense to not just be absolutely terrible. But it's like, as far as when they get into the playoffs, I don't know. Because then the data and the tendencies or what defenses can focus on, or they're just going to tee off on every single thing that they have. I think I'll end with this. So he's a great athlete. He can give issues to defenses as a runner. He has the 8th most scramble yards. He's 2nd in yards per scramble, 9.9. He's 20th in success rate on scrambles. So that to me means he scrambles in like not good situations. And then where a lot of defenders go like, all right, here it comes. Okay, he's running, guys. Go get him. Let's go get him. Like that. Everything that was working for them, was effective, has just lost effectiveness. And now you're just seeing it, kind of more plainly, I think, when kind of some of the smoke and mirrors have worn off. But long-winded way to say, yeah, Bo Nix has been struggling this year, and he's kind of hindering this entire team, I would say, from maybe taking that next step to being a true contender in my eyes.
I mean, I think that was really well said. And just to your point about like
the difference from a year ago when that got clipped.
Yeah, no, definitely different. And I think that time has made your take on Bo Nix look better and better. And like I said this a few weeks ago when we were talking about this team, I was like, why do they call plays because they're afraid of, like, why do they call plays as if they're afraid of their quarterback if Sean Payton really believes in all the things that he says about Bo Nix? Like, actions speak louder than words. And I think Nix has played worse since then, and only kind of reaffirmed that, yeah, maybe there's a reason that one of the best play callers of our era is not opening up his offense. Do you think that he just left pages of the playbook behind in New Orleans and he's like, those are the ones that got lost in the move. The good plays got lost in the move, actually, or I left them in the damn Fox studio when I retired. It's, to me, that seems a little disingenuous of an argument. But to your point about the lack of sack taking, I thought this was interesting. I was looking up some pressure to sack stuff, as we'll talk about here in just a minute. Bo Nix has the lowest pressure to sack rate in the NFL right now, which, as you said, it's good quality. But I think that we as an NFL media, NFL fan universe have kind of over-indexed on doesn't take sacks good or takes a lot of sacks bad, when it's like, if you're not going to take sacks, okay, that's great. Do something after that, though. It's one thing to avoid. It's one thing to avoid a negative play. It's another thing to avoid a negative play and like you have a nothing burger come after it. So these are the quarterbacks that have a pressure to sack rate lower than 13% on the year. Bo Nix is number 1. Jordan Love is number 2. Caleb Williams, Dak Prescott, Sam Darnold, Bryce Young, Matthew Stafford. The only 2 guys among that cohort that have an adjusted yards per attempt lower than 7.0 are Bryce Young at 4.3, woof, and Bo Nix at 6.1. Those are the 2 guys. It's like, great, you avoided the sack, you got out of pressure, you avoided the sack. What happened after that? Was it something that moved the needle? Is it Sam Darnold with 10.1 adjusted yards per attempt, or is it just is it one of these other guys where nothing happened? And I think that's a big problem in Carolina. I think it's a big problem in Denver right now too.
No, it's a great point, because even like Drake May takes a little too many sacks right now. But then also you got to kind of look why they are happening. Some sacks are getting taken because the guy is just trying to do too much. Like Jackson Dart, he's taking sacks when he takes sacks when he's on the field and healthy. He's just hanging out back there, again, if you want to be dumb, you got to be tough, and he'll just hang back there and just, all right, I don't care about the pass rush, let's go. But with other guys, they like Drake May, he'll take the sacks, and it's because he's trying to make the bad play worse. But then the next play, he'll take a sack on first down, 2nd and 14. I guarantee you that next pass is launched past the sticks, because he creates so many explosives, and that's the offset. You can take sacks if you create explosives. That's the Russell Wilson argument, actually, back in the day. But when you're not taking sacks, again, it's the balls in play. What are they doing? And I get it that he makes contact, and how many times he, does his little parallel to the line of scrimmage, get the shoulders parallel, does a little scatter, step up, and then throws a rocket to a running back, and the running back just gets depleted. Like, that just happens so much in this offense. And it's like, he didn't take a sack. It was still just a 1-yard gain. So it's kind of saying, just kind of continuing your point that, like, you avoid the sack, but what are you creating after you don't take the sack? Like, that actually matters a lot. And he's got, this is what I wrote up on him. This is why I'm kind of frustrated sometimes talking about him. It's like, he was a day 2 guy all the way. I think everybody should have looked at him as a day 2 guy, and he got overdrafted because he's a quarterback. And I get that. I do get that argument. I get like getting to the car, like quarterbacks get inflated. Their stock gets inflated all the time. But still, to me, that was inflated to like pick 28, pick 30, or early round 2, as opposed to this. And it's because, like, you're not taking sacks, you're not doing all this stuff, you got a great arm, you can run, but also, like, you're missing throws. You're not even just taking the opportunities to try some of these throws. And that matters so much to when you want to run a good offense and operate in a good offense. Is, you can have some negatives crop up. I think Dak Prescott and his year-to-year, week-to-week discourse is a great example. Remember when interceptions were a big deal for Dak Prescott? Remember when everyone was talking about how many interceptions he had? I want to say this was 3 years ago. And then the next year, he's second-team All-Pro, because guess what? All those tip balls didn't get picked, and all those like contested throws were actually caught this time. Like, it happens sometimes, but you have to take chances to create big plays. They're not hospital balls. They're just throws over the middle. And I think with Nick, so many times the ball's late, or it's just a spray, or it's just a check down because he just feels scattershot. So that's what just the whole passing game is. I know we're just bearing onto this, but it's like, it feels more definitive on this. And it kind of just, when you have a team made up like this, I think that's where some frustration lies. That it's like, this team could be a contender if they got this going. And I get young quarterback in that discussions, but this is not, it should look better than what it is right now. Let's get to your point number 2. We're staying in the AFC. What you got here, Matt? What was another fatal flaw for a playoff team right now?
Let's talk Buffalo Bills here. Honestly, plenty of options that I think I could have considered, which not ideal. I had a little bit of an existential crisis after we did the episode a couple weeks ago before I was off last week, where we talked about kind of hierarchy, power rankings of these top 10 teams, who's a real contender, who's not. you had the Chiefs number one. I had them a little bit lower, and I was like, and then they lose to the Bills. I was like, see, Nate trying to gaslight me about the damn Chiefs. Hey, I knew he had them too high. But then at the same time, I thought, okay, well, yeah, but also they got beat by the Bills, who I pretty much just summarily was like, well, no, they're not a real contender to me anymore. So maybe I'm actually an idiot, and which is probably the case. I am an idiot, but. Then after that game, it's fine. We're all idiots. So as I'm trying to be like, yeah, Nate gaslit me on the Chiefs. I'm like, well, did I gaslight myself on the Bills? I don't really know here. But then they lose this past game to the Dolphins and just show all of their fatal flaws really here, which we could talk about defense. We could talk about the run game, all that. But I'm just going to play the hits here because there are so many potential options for fatal flaws with this team. I think the passing game is a fatal flaw right now. And I just think from a personnel standpoint, they are simply not good enough, period. And I know they have Josh Allen. I think Josh Allen is awesome. I think Josh Allen you're starting to feel the weight of the situation on his shoulders because there is just not a lot of answers with what's going on here right now. And I get it. The Bills offense is a really good, it's one of the best rushing teams in the league when they're on. And, they do a lot with like Jackson Hawes is that blocking tight end has been incredible to see. James Cook is awesome. Their offensive line is good, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. That's great, but that can't be the identity of the offense because their defense isn't good enough for them to be this mauling run first team. Like they have to have a counter punch in the pass game. And like, Nate, what is the counter punch right now? Especially now that Dalton Kincaid is banged up and he's easily been their most impactful downfield receiver right now. The Keon Coleman thing it's just like, there's nothing there from a consistency basis. They have nobody that can create separation. Fans are on Twitter talking about, wow, it's a big mistake for us to let Matt Collins go. Matt Collins. I know. Okay. He's a nice role player, but that's the dire state here right now. It's like, well, maybe we should give Elijah Moore more chances. It's just like we're running out of options here to what we can do. And I think this is going to be the thing that when we look back in February and why are the Bills not in the Super Bowl, we can point to a lot of reasons, but I think ultimately because they do not have a passing game that can take over a contest. I think that is, or dig them out of a hole against a good team. Shoot, it couldn't even dig them out of a hole against the damn Dolphins. I think that's ultimately going to be the reason that it holds them back.
There's not once where they play a team like the Dolphins that lacks corners, and it's just like, how are they going to cover the Bills? Like, how are they? Oh my God. Like even with the Bengals with freaking Joe Flacco, I'm like, man, they got Chase and Higgins and like, man, they can just get rolling at any time. Like, good luck. Better run cover 2 every play. Against the Bills, I'm fine running man. Like, I get it. I get it. Like, yeah, Josh Allen might do some things, but you can do things and it's a valid answer against this offense, which is, yeah, they can run the ball. I like the line, but I also think the offensive line, pass protection wise, is taking a drop off. And I think too, I think Josh Allen in the red zone kind of just feels a little. I didn't look at any stats with this, but I feel so many times once they get inside the 30, so like scoring range, I should say, not even just the red zone. It comes down to, can they hit a bubble shot play or a bubble pump, where they fake the bubble and then there's Dalton Kincaid running a wheel route, or can they run the ball? It's not like I see a drop back where they're running some, extensive drop back concept. It feels like kind of shot play, or just running the ball. So I'm just, offensively, there's just the frustrations. There's a little bit of I still think this is a good offense again, but it's just, again, once you get into the playoffs and teams start taking away your strengths or try to, okay, what else you got? What can you pivot to? And it feels like the run game can pivot to things, but the passing game can't. And that's a little worrisome because that should be a true strength. And then that's not even getting into the defense, which is, yes, they had the Chiefs game where they just threw the kitchen sink at the Chiefs and they did all this stuff. And people are talking about Maxwell Harrison. Oh my God, Brandon Beane's the smartest GM ever. And then but then the next week you're like, oh yeah, there's that defense. Also, by the way, Beane, Joe Shane's old boss, very good with the media, was talking about how he was disappointed he couldn't trade for a receiver, which is part of what we're talking about right here. But I wanted to be like, why aren't you trading for a D tackle Or why aren't you trading for like a safety or something? Like, why aren't you trading for your actual glaring, like the biggest weakness that you have on this team? And this is a stat I've brought up before talking about the Bills defense. Next Gen Stats has a stat called group tackle opportunities. So how many times there's multiple players around to make a tackle. In 2021, when this defense was peaking, it was 45 a game. 2022 was 48 a game. Last year, 49 a game. And then this year, it's only 35 group tackle opportunities a game. Is that like end all be all good defense, bad defense? No, but for the Bills it is, because how their defensive scheme is. A lot of zone, a lot of bodies near the ball, undersized linebackers, safeties. I talked about this a bit with Chuck. That is just, the strengths aren't the strengths. Like what they're supposed to be, what this team is built to be, they can't really do it right now. And that's a little bit worrisome. Think it's a playoff team, think it's actually overall still a good team in the weirdest way. But man, these Achilles heels are very, very glaring to me, which is, again, spine of the defense, safety play, and then what you're talking about, that lack of just passing game ceiling. And maybe is that the best way to maybe put
ceiling. It? Yeah, I think there's a reasonable floor here, especially because Shakira is good. Yep. Obviously, Josh Allen's awesome. Josh Allen's going to make you right. Even if like I said, I think there are some times where he hasn't played his best football this year. But to me, I think there's just a weight on his shoulders that's a little bit more than it should be. And you brought up the point about Brandon being like, I tried to trade for a receiver, which is ironic because he obviously gave it to put it nicely, a bunch of radio hosts, some of the radio hosts there in the local area this offseason about how complaining, and I'm using a different word than he did, complaining about the wide receiver room is the dumbest thing that you can do, because he talked about, hey, well, we had to rebuild the defense and all this stuff, which we did. And then it's like, well, no, actually, we're not trading for a defensive player to forget the fact that defense stinks. We're trying to find a wide receiver. It feels a little bit herky-jerky and on the ropes a little bit right now with where this team is, which I think is a factor of the pressure of where they're at as a team. They want to win a Super Bowl. They want to maximize this window. But I do think that they have put themselves in a brain pretzel with this wide receiver room that, unfortunately, I'm not quite sure how they get themselves out of this one at this point in the season. I don't think that is coming.
Oh, man. Then they got an interesting schedule coming up. Bucs, which again is still a good defense. Then they go, and also curious too, because how do you pass on them? Then they got the Texans on Thursday night. And I keep saying Broncos, or I keep going, Broncos have the best defense, and I keep stopping myself and going top three because I think the Texans have the best defense. And I keep stopping myself, like going like, but the Texans, so then they got that on a short week, and then they go Steelers. Okay, so maybe get a deep breath, and then Bengals. Patriots. That Patriots game is going to be huge. And that's the other thing, is the Patriots are putting pressure on them. And that's going to be one of the teams that I talked about after we take our next break. We are going to take that break, and we'll come back with a few more teams with fatal flaws. See you guys in a sec. All right, we are back, continuing the flaws that are fatal for these playoff teams. I'm going to go with one of mine. It's the Lions, who, feeling better about the defense, started to feel better about the offense. And then I was kind of, every time I watch the Lions, I'm like, there's just a little bit something missing here. There's just a little bit something missing here, which I was just a little concerned going into the season, if they had some performances. But right now, the fatal flaws for me with the Lions is with the offense, and it's the tendencies they have. The run game taking a little drop off, and the screens in this offense taking a drop off. I think you and I have talked about this, where receiver screens kind of feel like they're indicative of what else is going on with the offense, kind of speak to the health of the offense overall. And for me, I'll just start with that with the Lions. Their screen game has totally dropped off a cliff. Think of just even the last couple of years, how many times Jared Goff would be hitting Jameson Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta on these receiver tight end screens, and boom, boom, boom. Oh my God, there's another touchdown. There's another big play. And sure enough, you look at it this year, only 30.8% of the receiver and tight end screens have been successful according to Next Gen Stats, 26th in the NFL. I also have a Falcon stat for you. 0% of the receiver screens have been successful this year. 0%. And the tight end screens is 8.3%,
like how we're not even talking about them, and somehow we've bagged on the Falcons twice.
I couldn't wait. I saw that stat. I was like, I couldn't wait to get to this stat just to talk about the Falcons part of it. Oh my God. And then EPA wise, it's middle of the pack, but then compared to last year, they were 7th in receiver tight end screen success rate, 48%. It's dropped off almost 20%. That's 1 out of 5. And they're 3rd in EPA per dropback on those last year. Just always thought, Ben Johnson's got he's got a good feel for that stuff. I just think also the tendency wise, why I wanted to bring that up, I just think when they're under center, they're running the ball. Like that's it. Under center, running the ball. Their running back runs, the 82.4% of them have been from under center. When they're under center on early downs, so first and second down, they have a 71% design run rate, one of the highest in the NFL. Last year was 61%. So it's jumped up. When they're in shotgun on early downs, again, they have a tendency, only a 22% design run rate on shotgun. So why? Okay, just like kind of playing this out. Last year was 33%. All right, first down, first and 10. I'm a defense. 1 out of 5 times they're going to run it if they're in the shotgun now. Last year was 1 out of 3, which is enough to make it rock, paper, scissors, But if it's 1 out of 5, that means I can really play the pass here. And if they're under center, 3/4 of the time they're running it, I can really play the run here. Like, it's just these upticks and tendencies. That's significant. 10% is a big jump with halfway through the season. So that is just, when I watch them, that's how it feels. On second down, if they had an unsuccessful first down play, and this is a tendency teams look at, here comes duo. Here comes under center duo. Like, and as someone that loves under center duo, you got to break it up a little bit. You got to have some tendencies. And I'm saying all this in review and saying this with film watching, looking at stats. And I think Dan Campbell and the staff saw it too, or this franchise, because he benched John Morton, the offensive coordinator. He took over play calling duties. He's trying to let Morton save face, but he took it over last week. And I can see why. There's just it's just something that just feels a little off with his team right now. Offense, I should say. And then even run game wise, which should be the backbone, what this whole entire franchise is built on, is the O-line and the run game and these running backs. They're 21st in rushing success rate on running back runs, 37%. They're between the Bengals and the Titans right now. Not exactly the two barn-burning run games in the NFL right now. It's the lowest since Campbell's first year as a head coach. Last year was 45%. So again, it's a significant drop. Explosive runs still up there. Still got the Jahmyr Gibbs runs, so they still get some yards per run. But success rate wise, they're just not having that jab that they've had. Runs that went, or plays that went 4 or more yards, it was 42.9% this year. The previous low was his first year, 44%. Last year was 50%, 51% to be exact. So again, a 10% almost drop off, 8% drop off. So I see it. I'm not saying this is a bad offense. This is still a top 10-ish offense, but going from top 3, top 2 and everything to top 10, that's, when you're talking about contending, that's a big difference, at least to me. And I think there's just some tendencies that I think defenses have started to pick up on, because even when I watch them, I'm starting to see them. But what do you feel about the Lions? Am I maybe making a mountain of a molehill for a team that just benched their offensive coordinator? And also Christian Mahogany, their guard, just got hurt as well, which is also an issue, is their drop off an interior offensive line play. That's the answer to all of this, by the way. Offensive coordinator change, and then interior offensive line took a huge step back, or I'll say a step back. I shouldn't say huge, but a step back as a unit. So anything else with this Lions team that you've noticed, Matt?
Well, I was going to say, I think you're dead on about this one, and the proof is in the pudding. Like, Dan Campbell took the play calling duties over, and I mean, he could say what he wants to about John Morton, but I saw the shots of John Morton up in that booth on Sunday's game. He looked like a man who had just been demoted. Even, like, come on, what are we talking about here? He had that look on his face, like,
and not fired
uncomfortable
either.
About what's. Yeah. I mean, just there. And Dan Campbell, which by the way, Dan Campbell's weird. Awesome. That's sick. The fact that he's one of the best culture builders in the NFL. And it's just, okay, things aren't going. This is not the first time he's done this. He did this with Anthony Lynn his first year on the job. Okay, things are not going well. I'll just take over the play calling duties and roll up. It's the Commanders, I get it, but roll up 540 plus yards of offense. So I think that there's a chance that. Yeah, I think that some of the tendency stuff, that's something to talk about. But Dan Campbell with his damn Walgreen readers on and the Waffle House menu might be the fix that they need here for this team, because I loved what they did with Jameson Williams in this past week's game. I think Morton, and you and I were on this from the offseason, that I think Morton just didn't have a handle of Jameson Williams and what he is as a receiver. Obsessed with the speed and the verticality when it's all – get him on in-breakers, get him on runway routes. That's what you want to do with Jameson Williams. They got at least 3-4 big plays, you doing exactly that in this past week's game. I also liked how they took Jahmyr Gibbs out of the role of the long down and distance back and made that David Montgomery, because Montgomery is just a little bit of a better pass protector. He's got more. Yes. Okay, yeah, you're sacrificing maybe some juice as a receiver in those moments, but we've watched Gibbs get rocked in pass protection this year. And this is like you're setting a good player, both of those guys, two of your most explosive players, you're setting up to fail with how you're deploying them. So we'll continue to monitor the tendency thing. That's a really good point just overall. But I think it's a one-game sample size, and it is the Commanders, not exactly great competition. But I think Campbell noticed all the things that you're noticing and is trying to at least find a fix here.
Yeah, and that was the thing. I was every time I watched this Lions team, because originally, I was like, I knew they would have a drop off in some ways. It's just so hard to sustain what they were doing, especially with the OC change, the center change. But it's just that this whole time I've watched them, I'm like, when they play good defenses, and they're really good against the bad defenses, obviously this is what good offenses do, I just feel it more. Like, I'm just like, yeah, I could feel the opposing teams kind of just, keying in on something, keying on formation stuff. Great call with the Jahmyr Gibbs Montgomery thing, because Montgomery's a great pass protector. Against the Vikings, Jahmyr Gibbs, who has improved tremendously as a pass protector. He was awful as a rookie, and now has been, I would even say, above average to what he's gotten to at this point in his career. But against the Vikings, they abused him. Again, allowed the most pressures for a running back in a game, according to Next Gen Stats, since at least 2018. David Montgomery in that game had one pass protection snap. That to me is not understanding the flow of the game. Going, hey, Gibbs is having some issues with this. They're really just, they're sending some guys down the pipe, and it is what it is. Maybe we'd lose some. It's not like Montgomery's that much of a drop off as far as some of the receiving stuff. I get it, the explosive ability. Gibbs could take any catch to the house, but Monty's still fine. But that to me was just a game flow thing where it's like you're not understanding what your weaknesses are right now. And that's adjustments. That's when people talk adjustments. Those are the type of things that you adjust on. So no, that's a great point that you mentioned it. I would even say the last kind of parting shot on this is even on 3rd and long, which is their whole team, their whole offense. Every offense is trying to avoid 3rd and 7 and longer, unless you're the Jaguars, and then you just invite it every week and just go like, yeah, let's do this every single week because it's so much fun. But they've gotten notably worse on 3rd and long, and not saying they're outright bad, because Goff can be a pretty good operator. But again, this is where some screens have taken a drop off, because they would hit some screens and maybe set up a 4th down or just pop a 1st down on those. But this year they're 19th in conversion rate on 3rd and long, 22%. Last year was 34%, which is top 5. So again, just these little things have made, where it's just this little drop off. And in the NFC, that has a lot of good teams, I think, right now. Just have to focus on these things, because I know the opposing teams will too as well. But liking what the defense is doing. I think they're, even with Arnold getting hurt again, defense is pretty cool now. I will say Kellen Shepard's done some cool things. So, all right, rounding it out. We went long. We were supposed to have 4. We were going to talk about the Chargers not having Joe Alt, and I was going to talk about the Bears and say a defense, a billion times defense. But I feel like
pretty obvious ones.
Kind of beat the bush on some of those. Yeah. I will say Bears have a legit before I even say that, I know we're getting to the last point. The Bears have a top 10 offense right now, by the way. And I do want to just reiterate how good the offense has been, and not saying there's a start point or anything. They're 9th in EPA per play on the season, 1st in explosive play rates, the most explosive offense in the entire NFL, 11th in EPA per dropback, 8th in EPA per run. This offense is starting to cook. 30th in penalties per snap, though. So
my God.
And if you watch a Bears game, when I watch that team, they are sure getting a penalty on 7% of their snaps, which is one of the highest rates you'll see. So, but no, what was your team number 3 or fatal flaw number 3, Matt?
Yeah, I was just going to basically make fun of myself for saying like, oh, the Chargers will be fine, Nate, 2 weeks ago, because they have Joe Alt back now, and now Joe Alt's out for the season, and they have to become a quick game obsessed offense. So I was just going to mostly make fun of myself in point number 4. But yeah, my last one here is the Colts, and this is a little bit of I'll be able to tell you the problem. I'm not 100% sure what the solution is here. Or this is more like, let me identify that this is the fatal flaw, is ultimately if they can't figure out what to do against pressure. Weeks 1 to 8, Daniel Jones, 9.8% pressure to sack rate. Only Dak Prescott was better. 0.8 total EPA added under pressure. That was the best among all quarterbacks. Only 3 quarterbacks, including Daniel Jones, had a positive EPA under pressure. Dak and Mahomes. 8.9 adjusted yards per attempt, 3rd behind Lamar and Matthew Stafford. So great stuff under pressure. Weeks 1 to 8. Right. Weeks 9 to 10. These last 2 games. 40% pressure to sack rate. It's tied with Aaron Rodgers, who can't move a muscle, for last in the NFL. Minus 24.3 total EPA, also dead last. And 9.08 adjusted yards per attempt. Only Lamar and Drake May were better amongst guys that have played 2 games here. So I think that goes to show you that the throws are still there. Like they're actually, when he's able to get the ball off, there are still big plays to be made and successful plays to be made and still answers in the offense for when there's pressure. We just got to get the ball out. Like that's the thing. We have to get the ball out of Daniel Jones's hand, because otherwise,
put the ball in play.
Put the ball in play. Still one of the best offenses in the league. Don't get the ball out. Literally the worst in the league the last 2 weeks. And I wrote a whole piece about this after the Pittsburgh game about why I did not think this was a blueprint that the Steelers threw out there in terms of, all right, this is how you shut down this Colts offense or anything, because they were actually still good on a down-to-down basis. It was just turnovers and sacks and things of that nature. And also, I didn't think that people would be able to copy the Steelers' game plan, which was completely shift up your coverage plan and take a corner and put him at safety. You know, a Hall of Fame corner and throw him at safety and throw out a guy that you just traded for, and Kyle Duggar is in every snap play. I didn't think teams were going to be able to transfer that week to week. The one thing I will say that exactly. The one thing I will say, though, that the Falcons are another one of these fronts that can just overwhelm you with a lot of blitzes and pressure off the edge and just mug things up front and play with a lot of speed, which I think Pittsburgh, when their back end is all buttoned up, which it was in that game against Indianapolis, as good as the Steelers can be, then they're a team that also can fly around and put a lot of pressure and throw a lot of bodies at the problem up front. So I am wondering if Indianapolis runs into a team like that, do then we see those negative plays for Daniel Jones, which ultimately they still won this game and there were still really positive moments on offense. It's just now we're talking about them being that best team, best offense in the league, or are they a team that wins one playoff game, wins 2 playoff games? Like, what are the Colts? The Colts are good. We know they're good. We know they're a contender. That's fine. Just now figuring out that ceiling. Is this going to be the thing that stops them from being a true Super Bowl team? They have a bye this week. Then they face Kansas City and Houston, then Jacksonville, and then Seattle out of the bye. So there's definitely a lot of some tough tests there, especially that Seahawks game. I mean, the Seahawks are another team that can just overwhelm you up front. So a lot of, I think it's good that Steichen has a week off to try to kind of add some things in here. I'm not sure what those plans would be. That's why he gets paid millions of dollars, and I'm just here doing this podcast from my home office. But I think that there's got to be some ways here where, all right, how can we get the ball out of Jones' hands faster when we get some of those more pre-snap heavy blitz looks, and then if it's a simulated pressure, where are our answers here and there? Because I think that's really where we're at right now with Indianapolis in terms of figuring out the true ceiling of this offense.
Well, it's been so cool to watch every week. They go like, oh, we can do this week. It works. We can do this week. It works. Like, it's been really fun to watch this offense. But no, this is great because it is noticeable that this is why when Daniel Jones came in, I kind of was like, whoa, man, he takes a lot of sacks, doesn't really throw the ball to the middle, not a great deep ball thrower. I can kind of like start shorting out when he gets under pressure. And through, like you said, first 2 months of the season, I was like, oh, wow, he's playing smoothly. Like, is Darnold and Seattle is another comparison. Obviously, these two are going to get compared a lot this year. But as far as they're not taking sacks because they're reading it out, and the plays, they're understanding where to go with the ball, even when it's not ideal, which is just, again, like it's just little things. The stats are showing that, but when you watch it, you can kind of feel it. The Ramsey thing is funny, by the way. I've been wanting to see Jalen Ramsey as a safety for years. So now I finally get to see it, but it's because the Steelers are so desperate that they have to do it, but I still like it. But I did notice in that Steelers game was Bernard Raymond, the left tackle, who has been much better over the last couple of years, and I would say is an above average starter at left tackle. The last 2 weeks, he's gotten abused. His pressure rate, one-on-one pressure rate allowed over the last 2 weeks is 15.8%. Basically anything over like 12% is pretty bad, but you want to be around that kind of 10% mark. Over the first 2 months of the season, it was 8.6%. So almost doubled over the last 2 weeks. He allowed 6 quick QB pressures over the first 8 weeks of the season. The last 2 weeks, he's allowed 6. So that kind of just shows you. And I thought Highsmith was abusing him in that game too. But that's speaking to what you're saying. Could that instant pressure on Daniel Jones can lead to the bad. And they have avoided so much bad this year that it's like, and I do think they can insulate him so much from it. But when a guy just loses one-on-one, that stinks. Like, it is what it is. Like, that's the guy we had going against that guy. You know what I mean? It's not like a scheme. Maybe they have to provide more chip help. But okay, they can do those things. I've seen I've seen and they've been avoiding kind of giving chip help, and that's what's led to a lot of their offense because they can just get everybody out.
Led to these like wide open throws in the flats with Tyler Warren and stuff. But yeah, does he have to become a guy that doesn't truly stay in line, but can he be like a check and release type player? Can Michael Pittman take more?
Yeah,
because I mean, Downs is great. He's an awesome slot receiver. He's tiny. You maybe don't want him being the check and release player. So do you want to maybe alternate? And when you're in 11 personnel, you put Downs outside, and Michael Pittman is that like big slot check and release player because I think he can play pretty physical. So I think there are options here, but you're right. They had been able to avoid that and get a lot of guys, which is funny because I think the NFL is kind of going the other direction where it's get fewer guys out in the route and like make it more defined, you know, in these base personnel. So they were getting a lot of guys out in the route and making basically everybody eligible. Do you maybe have to constrict that a little bit to provide help here in this particular instance? Because I just think otherwise it's pretty tough.
The one thing I'll say too, I've really liked with the Colts, and I noticed it most against the Falcons because they were just running the ball so well, was they've really separated the RPOs now where they'll just run straight run plays. It's not the Gardner Minshew offense when he was with the Colts where his RPOs like literally every single play. It was every variation of RPO you could ever think of. Sorry, I've straightened my hat like 400 times. Anyone watching on a YouTube show. But no, it's watching the RPOs or lack of now that they've stopped the RPOs, you can see the receivers just and the size of the receivers, Pittman, Pierce, who almost had 100 yards on my Hail Mary prediction. Almost got it in the first half, too. They're just straight up going up to block guys, going up to block the safeties, going up to block the slots. And why I'm bringing that up is, do they just tag a few more RPOs just to open things up out of the bye week? Maybe just, in a way, streamline things. I know RPO seems like, oh, wow, isn't that making it complex? It actually makes it more easy on the quarterback because now you're just saying that it's less drop back stuff that he has to sort through. So, again, they have options. That's why I'm so bullish on this offense still, even if they've had some blemishes recently. And actually, I like the Sauce Gardner addition. I know it was a lot. We can talk about value and everything, but as far as what the Colts are this year, really like it. So I'm just focusing on that. But yeah, so that was one answer that they needed to find. The offense has done so many good things. I am curious, too, when they come out of the bye, what it looks like. That Chiefs game is going to be a lot of fun because that is a defense that will test what you got and what your answers are for everything. So they're still a good team. It's just that was a good one to bring up, though, because I have felt that a little bit where some more plays are spiraling than they have. This whole year, they felt like they're always in control. Just always had a good answer for everything, Jones included. And I agree with you. I felt a little some spiraling moments. Speaking of spirals and tight spirals, that works. Drake May transition, whatever. Talk about the Patriots, and I'll talk about my fatal flaw for the Patriots. I don't know. I'm working on the segues, trying to get better with them. The Patriots. Mine is, you've heard me hint at it as I've talked more and more about the Patriots the last few weeks, but their run game is just not very good right now. I know the Henderson long runs are going to grab a lot of headlines. This is bottom 5, bottom 6 run game right now. But I do also, the other thing is when I watch the passing game and watch the defense, I don't know how else to describe it. It's like they're really good against the run, but against the pass, they have Christian Gonzalez and they have Carlton Davis who's playing well too, but they're pickable. Like it feels like every team could find answers against this defense when they throw the ball, and it kind of bears that out in the stats. Like just even looking at their defense, they're 4th in rushing success rate allowed to running back runs, 4th in explosive run rate allowed, 4th in yards per run, less than 4 yards per run allowed. But then they're 25th in passing success rate, it's 26th in net yards per attempt, and they've allowed the 3rd most explosive passes over the middle of the field. And that's where I was trying to find a way to encapsulate why it feels that way. Robert Spillane is a solid player, but he has some limitations. And what the Patriots play a lot of quarters and they play a lot of cover 2, that can put your linebackers on an island. Just kind of how the makeup of the zone, even on match coverages, they can get isolated based on who they have to carry. And I just noticed that a lot when I watch this Patriots team. I watch a lot of Patriots football. They're winning games right now, and they have Drake May. So I'm watching a lot of Pats football. And I just think they're okay success rate wise, but it's just when they get got, it's a big play for the opposing team. Kate Otten, I just referenced him earlier. I can think of Devon Achane against the when they played the Dolphins, although Achane kind of gets that every single week. They're good on third down, but the other thing with this defense, the other thing I noticed, and this was the whole point that I found this stat, they're dead last in the NFL in red zone defense. They've allowed a touchdown on 73.9% of red zone trips. For reference, the Broncos are first at 37.5%. The league average is 59%. How 73.9% seems high. How high is it? I was looking at that number. I was like, that seems really, really high. Really high. And guess what it is, Matt Harmon? It's really high. Since 2002, it's the sixth highest red zone rate allowed by a defense in the entire NFL. So hundreds of football teams, hundreds of seasons, sixth highest. Once you get into the red zone, you're scoring on this Patriots defense. They are 100% allowing touchdowns when it's goal to go. When an offense is inside the 10-yard line and and the end zone is their goal to go to get a first down or score, 100% of the time that offense has scored. The other team, though, is the Texans also are 100%, but they just haven't allowed a lot of red zone trips. So that's like just a little difference there. There's only been 10 defenses that have been above 90% since 2013, and they're at 100% right now. They have good players. Milton Williams, great player. Tonga's had a nice player. Chason's a solid player as well, which is crazy to me because he used to be so bad. Christian Gonzalez is very good. Carlton Davis is good. Christian Gonzalez is top 8 in coverage success rate allowed. He's 11th in yak receptions allowed, 11th in EPA per target. He's just a good player. But they have a lot of things you can pick at. So anything to add on with the Patriots, your observations? Because I know I had a lot of thoughts. I just unloaded on you, but I do think it's pretty they have some cool stuff, but they're just an incomplete team going against some easy opponents so far this year.
That middle of the field stat that you read out there was a 4th in explosive plays allowed over the middle of the field.
Yeah.
That made sense to me. Third. Okay. Top 4 includes third. That actually makes a lot of sense to me. And again, I keep referencing this because 1, it was a great matchup, and 2, I just have been working on my rookie report for reception perception. So I just worked on the Emeka Egbuka, Christian Gonzalez Patriots matchup that just happened here. And not that every play was completed, but there was a lot of plays where I'm like, and look, Emeka Egbuka is awesome against zone coverage. He's one of the rare rookie receivers who just has an innate feel for where to be against zone coverage and all that. Whereas some of these other rookies are running themselves into coverage, the whole deal, even the good ones. But he has a really, he's gonna go down as one of the best rookie report samples against zone coverage that I've done the last 5 years now. He's so good at it. So I want to preface that by saying there's a lot of throws I'm like, damn, he's open over the middle of the field, even when he doesn't always get the ball in those scenarios against New England. And that was something to me where I'm like, yeah, that could be a spot where a team really picks on them. Obviously, the Bucs are a good team, but like any other good team in the playoffs, the good thing for New England here is we're not going to be able to test this theory all that often here pretty soon. They play the Jets in Week 11, so I don't think you got to worry about Justin Fields. And
I know.
I guess they're going to have to activate Adonai Mitchell because Garrett Wilson's injured again. Don't have to worry about that here in Week 11. Week 12, Bengals. That's obviously something that could be a problem with Jamar Chase there. But Giants Week 13, bye, Bills, Ravens, Jets, Dolphins to end the season. So not the stiffest schedule here even remaining for New England in terms of passing over the middle of the field. But there's some spots there where we'll be able to test this theory.
And then I know I just rattle on their defense. I did have one interesting thing about their run game as well. Again, they're 28th in rushing success rate and running back runs. They're 9th in offensive DVOA. They're 3rd in passing DVOA and 27th in rushing DVOA because they face a middling schedule, 16th in DVOA going into last week on offense. Their defense has faced the easiest schedule in the NFL. But I just noticed was those Travion Henderson runs, the long runs. We talked about this with Henderson on the fantasy forecast, was talking about outside hitting runs with Henderson. That's what he's usually best at. And that's what he was best at in college as well. And I looked on FTN, and this is my way to kind of group it. Run plays with pullers. So gap scheme, which is counter, power, and then pin pull, but they put pin pull as power, which is a whole nother conversation, but whatever. But run plays with pullers. The Patriots, I just mentioned, bottom 5 in rushing success rate overall, 27th in rushing DVOA. They're 12th in success rate on run plays with pullers, 44%. 5th in EPA per run, probably a couple of those long runs. 8th in DVOA. But it's been a couple of weeks they've done this. The Browns game, second half, they did this as well. all other runs, so zone runs or man runs, man equals duo, zone and man runs, or where no one is pulling, 32nd in success rate, 33.5%, 29th in EPA per run, 26th in DVOA. If you're not going to be a jab machine in your run game, make it boom bust. And how do you make it boom bust? You pull people. Because you take some TFLs, but guess what? You can gash a team if you hits and they slant and you catch them. To me, that's their formula because Drake May can pepper defenses. So that was my last little parting thought on this Patriots team. Matt, that was a lot of fun. That was fun. Like you said even before the show. Yeah, we're gonna stretch it. Always bet the over. When Nate and Matt are on the podcast, always bet the over.
Terrible.
But no, that was a lot of fun. We're closing it out today. Chuck and I will be back on Thursday to preview week 11. God, that's crazy to say. I'm Nate Tice. You can find me at Nate_Tice. That is Matt Harmon. You can find him at Matt Harmon_BYB on social media. Matt, what are you working on this week before I let you go?
Mentioned I just wrote that article about the Packers. Got my rookie report for reception perception coming up Thursday morning. And then, you'll be on the show tomorrow for the Fantasy Film Room where we're going to talk about a little bit of blame pie. Who's to blame for some of these offenses that are struggling? Is it the quarterback? Is it the play caller? Is it the skill position players? That's what everybody wants to do. Like, who's really to blame here? And it basically, we're going to cut through our agendas and our preconceived notions because that's really what everybody does. Just retreat to your priors. We're going to cut through that tomorrow on the show.
I mean, there's a couple conversations we had today where I was like, I should have just stuck firm on some of my priors because I played footsie with some of the takes, maybe selling some takes. And then after overtime, it's like, oh the Jaguars do have a bad offensive line. I should have just recognized that even if they were playing better, those types of things. But make sure to check out Matt's stuff. It is so good. I can't wait to check out that Packers article. Also, my stuff, being selfish here, let me gaze at my navel. Check out Film Room every Wednesday on our Yahoo Sports YouTube channel. I'd appreciate if you check that out. Subscribe to us, follow us, and rate us wherever you get your podcasts, or watch us on YouTube on the Yahoo Sports YouTube channel. Make sure subscribe to us there, like it, leave comments. We'd really appreciate that wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube. Thanks to Stone, Austin Madison behind the scenes for making us look and sound good. Thank you all for listening. See you guys next time.